Margaret Stone sat at her usual table in the corner of Le Jardin, the most expensive restaurant in Silicon Valley. At 78 years old, she had earned the right to eat wherever she pleased. Her technology companies had made her one of the richest women in America, but tonight she just wanted a quiet dinner alone. The salmon on her plate was perfectly cooked, and the wine was from her private collection that the restaurant kept just for her. She cut another piece of fish and lifted her fork when something made her freeze completely. The young waitress who had been refilling water glasses wore a necklace that made Margaret's blood turn cold. The pendant hanging from the simple silver chain looked like a piece of crystal, but Margaret knew better. She had seen that exact pattern before, 50 years ago in a government facility that officially did not exist. The geometric shapes inside the crystal seemed to pulse with a soft blue light. Most people would think it was just pretty jewelry, maybe something bought at a craft fair. But Margaret recognized the bioresonance field emanating from the device, her enhanced vision, a gift from decades of working with alien technology, could see the energy patterns dancing around the crystal. The fork slipped from her fingers and clattered against her plate. The sound made other diners look her way, but Margaret barely noticed. Her mind raced back to 1973 when she was a young engineer working on Project Constellation. The classified program had been her life for 15 years. She had spent countless hours in underground laboratories, studying crashed ships and trying to understand technology that was centuries ahead of human science. The waitress turned toward Margaret's table, probably wondering about the noise. Her name tag read Katie, and she looked to be in her early 20s. She had dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and tired eyes that spoke of long hours and hard work. But the crystal around her neck was what held Margaret's attention. It was identical to the medical scanners they had recovered from the Roswell incident, devices that could analyze human biology down to the genetic level. Margaret forced herself to pick up her fork and take another bite of salmon, though she could barely taste it now. She watched Katie move between tables, pouring water and clearing dishes. The girl had no idea what she was wearing. The crystal was actively scanning everyone in the restaurant, recording biological data and transmitting it somewhere. Margaret could see the faint energy beams touching each person as Katie walked past. This was impossible. All the alien artifacts, from Project Constellation, had been destroyed or locked away in facilities so secret that most government officials did not know they existed. Margaret had personally overseen the destruction of dozens of devices when the project was shut down in 1988. She had made sure every piece of alien technology was accounted for. Yet here was a genuine Xylorian medical scanner hanging around the neck of a waitress in a public restaurant. Margaret's phone buzzed with a text message, but she ignored it. Her assistant probably wanted to confirm tomorrow's board meeting or remind her about some charity event. None of that mattered now. The only thing that mattered was the impossible device that should not exist. She studied Katie more carefully as the young woman approached her table. The girl moved with unusual grace, as if her reflexes were just slightly faster than normal. Her skin had a healthy glow that seemed to come from within. These were signs that the crystal was not just scanning her but actively improving her biology. The Xylorian devices had been designed to enhance whoever wore them, slowly modifying human genetics to make them stronger and healthier. Katie reached Margaret's table and smiled politely. "Is everything okay with your dinner, Mrs. Stone? I heard something fall." Margaret looked up at the young woman, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Everything is fine, dear. I was just admiring your necklace. It's quite beautiful. Where did you get it?" Katie's hand moved unconsciously to touch the crystal. "Oh, this old thing? I found it in my grandmother's attic after she passed away last year. She had a lot of vintage jewelry, but this was the only piece that really caught my eye. I know it's probably not worth much, but it makes me feel closer to her somehow." The words hit Margaret like a physical blow. Katie's grandmother had possessed Xylorian technology. That meant someone else from Project Constellation had managed to smuggle out an artifact. Margaret had thought she knew everyone who worked on the project, but clearly there had been secrets even she was not aware of. "Your grandmother had excellent taste," Margaret managed to say. "That crystal is quite unique. I don't suppose you know anything about its history." Katie shook her head. Grandma Helen never talked much about her past. She was a nurse during the war, but after that she just raised her family and kept to herself. She had this whole box of strange things in her attic, but most of it was just old papers and photographs. This necklace was the only thing that seemed special. Helen. Margaret searched her memory for any nurse named Helen who might have worked on classified projects. There had been medical staff involved in Project Constellation, people who helped examine the recovered alien bodies and study the effects of their technology on human subjects. But their names and records had been classified above Margaret's security level. Katie refilled Margaret's water glass and moved on to the next table. Margaret watched her go, noting how the crystal's glow seemed to intensify when Katie was stressed or excited. The device was bonding with her, creating a symbiotic relationship that would slowly transform her into something more than human. Margaret pulled out her phone and sent a text to her head of security. She needed a complete background check on Katie Brooks within the hour. She needed to know everything about the girl and her family, especially her grandmother Helen. If there were other artifacts out there, if other families had Xylorian technology, then everything Margaret thought she knew about Project Constellation was wrong. The salmon sat forgotten on her plate as Margaret's mind raced through possibilities. The alien technology was not dormant. It was active and changing Katie in ways the girl could not understand. And if Margaret's memories of the Xylorian warnings were correct, then Katie wearing that crystal meant something terrible was coming. Something that would require humanity to be ready to fight for their very survival. Margaret sat in her black sedan across the street from Le Jardin, watching the staff exit through the back door. It was past midnight, and the restaurant had been closed for 2 hours. She felt foolish sitting in a car like some private detective, but she needed to see where Katie went after work. Her security team had already provided a basic report on the girl, but Margaret wanted to observe her directly. Katie emerged wearing jeans and a worn jacket, the crystal necklace still visible at her throat. She walked quickly toward the bus, checking her phone several times. Margaret noticed that the girl moved differently than she had during her shift. Without the careful control she maintained while serving customers, Katie's enhanced reflexes were more obvious. She dodged a puddle without looking down and caught her phone when it slipped from her hand with impossible speed. The bus arrived and Katie climbed aboard. Margaret instructed her driver to follow at a distance. The bus route took them through the less expensive parts of the city, past convenience stores and apartment buildings that had seen better days. Katie got off in a neighborhood where the streetlights were dim and half the storefronts were empty. Margaret watched Katie enter a small apartment building that looked like it had been built in the 1960s and never updated. The security report had said Katie lived there with her younger brother Danny, but seeing the building made Margaret realize just how desperately the girl needed money. The place was barely a step above a slum. The next morning, Margaret had her assistant arrange for flowers to be delivered to Katie's apartment. The delivery person was actually one of Margaret's security specialists, equipped with scanning equipment, disguised as a clipboard. Within an hour, Margaret had detailed readings of the energy signatures coming from Katie's apartment. The crystal was not the only alien device in the building. Margaret's hands shook as she read the report. There were at least 3 other Xylorian artifacts in Katie's possession, all of them active, and all of them slowly modifying the biology of everyone in the apartment. Katie's younger brother was showing signs of genetic enhancement even though he was not wearing any visible alien technology. That afternoon, Margaret returned to Le Jardin for lunch. She requested Katie as her server and made small talk while studying the girl more carefully. Up close, the changes were obvious to someone who knew what to look for. Katie's eyes were brighter, her skin was flawless, and she moved with the fluid grace of someone whose nervous system had been optimized by alien biotechnology. "Katie, I hope you don't mind me asking, but have you been feeling different lately?" Margaret asked as Katie refilled her coffee cup. "More energetic, perhaps?" Katie paused, the coffee pot hovering over Margaret's cup. "That's a strange question." "Why do you ask?" "I'm involved in medical research," Margaret said, which was technically true. "I've been studying how certain materials can affect human health. Your necklace, for instance, appears to be made of a mineral I've been investigating. The girl's hand moved to touch the crystal again. It was clearly an unconscious habit. I have been feeling better since I started wearing it. I used to get sick all the time, but now I barely even get tired after working double shifts. My brother Danny says I seem different too. Margaret leaned forward slightly. Tell me about Danny. Is he ill? Katie's expression grew worried. He has a genetic condition that affects his muscles. The doctors say he'll need expensive treatments for the rest of his life, but we can't afford them. That's why I work so many jobs. I'm trying to save enough money for his medical bills. The pieces clicked together in Margaret's mind. The alien artifacts were not just enhancing Katie, they were actively working to heal her brother's genetic disorder. The Xylorian medical technology was designed to identify and correct biological problems, but it worked slowly and subtly to avoid detection. Katie, I have a proposition for you, Margaret said carefully. I'm a collector of unusual jewelry and I'm very interested in your necklace. I'd be willing to pay a substantial amount for it. Katie's eyes widened. How substantial? $50,000. The coffee pot slipped from Katie's hand, but her enhanced reflexes caught it before it hit the floor. Other diners nearby didn't even notice the near accident. Katie stared at Margaret with disbelief written across her face. You want to pay $50,000 for my grandmother's old necklace? I'm prepared to pay that amount today in cash if you're willing to sell it to me. Katie backed away from the table, her free hand clutching the crystal protectively. Why? What's so special about it? You said it was just some mineral you were studying. Margaret could see the suspicion in the girl's eyes. Katie was not stupid, and the alien technology was enhancing her intuition along with her physical abilities. She could sense that something about this offer was not normal. The truth is complicated, Margaret said, but I believe your necklace may have historical significance. I think it belonged to someone who worked on classified government projects many years ago. What kind of projects? Margaret hesitated. She was already revealing more than she should, but Katie deserved to know at least part of the truth. During the Cold War, there were research programs that studied unusual materials and technologies. Some of the people who worked on those programs were medical personnel, like nurses. Katie's expression changed. You think my grandmother was involved in some kind of secret government work? It's possible. Helen Martinez was her name, correct? She worked as a nurse in the 1970s. How do you know my grandmother's name? Katie's voice had an edge to it now. I never told you her last name. Margaret realized she had made a mistake. Her background research had been too thorough, and now Katie was becoming suspicious. The girl was backing toward the kitchen, ready to call for help if necessary. Katie, please don't be afraid. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to help you understand what you're wearing. That necklace is more important than you realize, and it may be the key to saving your brother's life. Katie stopped moving. What do you mean? Meet me tomorrow after your shift. I'll show you something that will explain everything. But Katie, whatever you do, don't take off that necklace and don't let anyone else touch it. Your life may depend on it. Margaret left money on the table and walked out of the restaurant, knowing that Katie would be watching her go. Tomorrow she would reveal the truth about Project Constellation and the alien technology that was slowly transforming humanity. But first, she needed to contact her old colleagues and warn them that the secrets they had buried were coming back to the surface. Katie stood outside the address Margaret had given her, staring up at a building that looked like a cross between a research facility and a fortress. The sign read, Stone Advanced Technologies, but there were no windows on the lower floors, and security cameras tracked her every movement. She had almost changed her mind 3 times on the bus ride here, but the promise of answers about her grandmother kept her moving forward. Margaret met her at a side entrance, dressed in casual clothes instead of the expensive outfit she had worn at the restaurant. Thank you for coming, Katie. I know this must seem strange. They passed through multiple security checkpoints, each one scanning Katie with devices she did not recognize. The guards were polite but professional, and Katie noticed they all carried weapons that did not look like normal guns. Margaret led her into an elevator that descended much deeper than Katie had expected. "Where are we going?" Katie asked as the elevator continued downward. "My private laboratory. It's the only place secure enough for this conversation." The elevator opened into a hallway lined with metal doors. Each door had warning signs and electronic locks that required Margaret's handprint to open. They walked past rooms labeled with codes like XT7 analysis and bioenhancement studies until they reached a door marked simply Archive. The room beyond was enormous, filled with display cases containing objects that made Katie's breath catch. There were pieces of metal that seemed to bend light around them, crystals that pulsed with their own inner fire, and devices whose purpose she could not even guess. But what drew her attention immediately was a display case in the center of the room containing 3 objects identical to her necklace. These were recovered from crash sites between 1947 and 1978, Margaret explained as Katie stared at the crystals. "We called them Xylorian medical scanners, though we were never sure if that was their actual name or just something we made up. Each one was found with the wreckage of vehicles that were definitely not built on Earth." Katie's hand moved unconsciously to touch her own crystal. "You're saying these came from spaceships?" "Alien spacecraft, yes. I was part of a classified program called Project Constellation. For 15 years, I studied technology that was centuries ahead of anything humans had developed. These medical devices were some of the most advanced pieces we ever recovered." Margaret walked to a computer terminal and began calling up files. Images appeared on a large screen showing crashed vehicles, strange symbols, and photographs of the crystals being examined by scientists in white coats. Katie recognized some of the geometric patterns from her own necklace. The devices were designed to scan and enhance biological systems. Margaret continued. They would analyze the genetics of whoever wore them and slowly modify their DNA to eliminate diseases and improve physical capabilities. We tested them on volunteers, but the modifications took months or years to complete. Katie stared at the screen, her mind racing. "You're saying my necklace is changing me? Has been changing you since the day you put it on? Your improved health, your faster reflexes, your ability to work long hours without getting tired. Those are all signs that the device has been optimizing your biology." Margaret touched another control and the screen showed medical scans. "I had my security team scan you yesterday when they delivered those flowers. Your genetic structure has been modified in at least 12 different ways. Your immune system has been enhanced, your muscle fibers have been strengthened, and your nervous system has been upgraded for faster processing speed." Katie felt dizzy and sat down in a nearby chair. "This is impossible. Things like this don't happen in real life. I thought the same thing 50 years ago, but the evidence was undeniable then, just as it is now." Margaret's voice was gentle but firm. "Katie, your grandmother was Helen Martinez, a nurse who worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in 1974. She was part of the medical team that examined recovered alien bodies and studied the effects of their technology on human subjects." The screen changed to show a photograph of a young woman in a nurse's uniform. Katie gasped because the woman looked exactly like her, just with different clothes and hair. The name tag on the uniform read, H. Martinez. Helen must have taken one of the devices when Project Constellation was shut down. She kept it hidden for 40 years, probably not even understanding what it really was. When she died, you inherited more than just a piece of jewelry. You inherited humanity's first step toward becoming something greater. Katie shook her head. "No, this is crazy. Aliens don't exist. This has to be some kind of joke or test or something." Margaret walked back to the display case and pressed her hand against a scanner. The case opened with a soft hiss, and she carefully lifted out one of the crystals. As soon as she touched it, the device began to glow with the same blue light as Katie's necklace. "The crystals recognize each other," Margaret explained. "They're part of a network designed to work together. Watch what happens when I bring them close to each other." Margaret held the crystal near Katie's necklace. Both devices flared with brilliant light, and suddenly the air between them shimmered with a holographic display. Symbols appeared in the air, rotating slowly and pulsing with meaning that Katie somehow understood even though she had never seen them before. The symbols told a story of a world far from Earth, populated by beings who had mastered the merger of biology and technology. They showed images of vast ships traveling between stars, carrying refugees fleeing from something terrible. The final symbols showed Earth as seen from space, with lines of light connecting it to other worlds. The Xylorians were not invaders, Margaret said as the hologram faded. They were refugees. They came to Earth looking for allies for a species that could help them fight an enemy that was destroying worlds across the galaxy. Katie stared at the space where the hologram had been. What enemy? We never found out. The project was shut down before we could establish real communication with them. All the devices were supposed to be destroyed or locked away. But your grandmother saved one, and now you're wearing it just when we might need it most. Margaret walked to another terminal and called up recent satellite data. The screen showed images of space around Earth's solar system. At the edge of the images, barely visible against the background of stars, were shapes that did not belong. 3 days ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected objects entering the outer solar system. They're too large to be asteroids, and they're moving in formation. Something is coming toward Earth, Katie. Something that's been traveling for a very long time. Katie felt the crystal around her neck grow warm against her skin. The device seemed to be responding to her emotional state, glowing brighter as her fear increased. What does this have to do with me? The medical devices were not just meant to enhance individual humans. They were preparing us for first contact, making us strong enough to survive whatever is coming. Your grandmother may have saved those devices for a reason. She may have known that someday humanity would need them. Margaret returned the crystal to its case, but Katie could still feel her own necklace humming with energy. The holographic message had awakened something in the device, and she could sense that it was trying to communicate with her on a level deeper than words. What do you want me to do? Katie asked finally. Help me find the others. If Helen managed to save one device, there may be other families with similar artifacts. We need to locate them before whatever is coming reaches Earth. And Katie, we need to find them soon. According to our calculations, those objects will reach Earth in less than 2 weeks. Katie looked around the laboratory, at the impossible, technology and the evidence of alien contact that the government had hidden for decades. Her quiet life as a waitress suddenly seemed very far away, but as she touched the crystal at her throat, she realized that her quiet life had been an illusion. She had been chosen for something much larger than herself. How do we start? She asked. Margaret smiled for the first time since Katie had met her. We start by waking up the network. Your crystal has been dormant for 40 years, but now that it's active again, it can help us locate the others. Are you ready to find out what your grandmother really left you? Katie nodded, not trusting her voice. Whatever was coming, she would face it with the truth about her heritage and the power of alien technology flowing through her veins. Dr. Peter Collins arrived at Margaret's laboratory at 3 in the morning, looking older than his 75 years but moving with the quick energy of someone who had spent decades dealing with impossible situations. Katie watched from across the room as he embraced Margaret like an old friend, though she could see the worry in both their faces. I came as soon as I got your message, Peter said, setting down a metal briefcase that looked like it could survive a nuclear explosion. I brought everything I still have from the old days. Most of it was supposed to be destroyed, but you know how I feel about throwing away good research. Margaret led him to the display case where Katie's crystal was now connected to scanning equipment. The device had been active for 12 hours straight, sending out signals that only the alien technology could detect. So far, they had located 4 other devices scattered across the country. The network is stronger than we thought, Margaret explained to Peter. Each crystal amplifies the signal of the others. Katie's device has been dormant for 40 years, but as soon as we activated it, the others began responding. Peter opened his briefcase and pulled out instruments that Katie recognized from old science fiction movies. He began scanning her crystal with devices that hummed and clicked and displayed readouts in languages she had never seen. Remarkable. The biointegration is more complete than anything we achieved during the project. How long has she been wearing it? About a year, Katie answered for herself. Since my grandmother died. Peter looked at her with new interest. Helen Martinez's granddaughter. I remember your grandmother well. She was one of the few people who understood what we were really dealing with. Most of the medical staff thought we were just studying advanced human technology. But Helen knew better, Katie asked. Helen was there the night we made first contact. Not with living aliens, but with their technology. One of the medical devices activated while she was examining it, and for about 10 minutes, she was in direct communication with the Xylorian databanks. She saw things that terrified her so much she never spoke about them to anyone. Margaret's expression grew grim. What did she see? Peter pulled up files on his portable computer, showing images that made Katie's stomach turn. They were photographs of dead worlds, planets that had been stripped of all biological life, leaving behind only empty shells of rock and metal. She saw what happens when the Devourers find a world with intelligent life. Devourers? Katie asked. That's what the Xylorians called them, a species that feeds on biological energy, converting entire ecosystems into fuel for their technology. They've been moving through this part of the galaxy for thousands of years, consuming everything in their path. Margaret studied the images on Peter's screen. The objects approaching our solar system? Almost certainly a Devourer fleet. The Xylorians must have sent out warning signals before their own world was consumed. The medical devices were not just meant to enhance individual humans. They were designed to prepare our entire species for war. Katie felt her crystal grow warm against her chest. The device seemed to be responding to the conversation, as if it understood the danger they were discussing. How many people have these devices? Margaret consulted her tracking equipment. We've identified 7 active signals so far. There may be more that haven't been activated yet. We need to reach them before the fleet arrives. Over the next 3 days, Margaret used her resources to locate and contact the other device holders. Luis Rodriguez was a former Marine living in Texas, whose father had been a security guard at Area 51. Amy Wright was a physicist in Colorado, whose mother had worked as a translator on Project Constellation. Jake Murphy was an engineer in Michigan, whose grandfather had been part of the recovery team for the 1965 incident. The twins Lisa and Kevin Chang lived in California, descendants of a scientist who had studied alien propulsion systems. Each of them had similar stories. Family members who had worked on classified projects, artifacts that had been passed down through generations, and recent improvements in health and abilities that they had attributed to better diet or exercise. None of them had realized they were carrying alien technology. Margaret arranged for all of them to come to her facility, using cover stories about a medical research study. But as they gathered in her laboratory, the truth became impossible to hide. When all 7 crystals were brought together, they created a holographic display that filled the entire room with images and data. Katie found herself at the center of the display, her crystal acting as the primary interface for the network. Information flowed through her mind faster than she could process, showing her the history of the Xylorian civilization and the approach of the Devourer fleet. She saw their homeworld being consumed, saw the refugee ships fleeing through space, saw the decision to seed other worlds with enhancement technology in preparation for the final battle. They've been preparing us for 50 years, she said, her voice strange and distant as the alien knowledge filled her thoughts. Every person who wore one of these devices passed enhanced genetics to their children. The modifications have been spreading through the human population without anyone realizing it. Luis Rodriguez, a tall man with scarred hands and military bearing, stared at the holographic display. How many humans are affected? Katie closed her eyes and let the crystal show her the truth. Millions. Maybe tens of millions. Everyone who descended from Project Constellation workers. Everyone who was exposed to alien technology. Their children and grandchildren all carry modified genes. Amy Wright, a small woman with intense eyes, pointed at part of the display. These symbols, they're showing us weapon specifications. The Xylorians left us blueprints for defensive systems. Peter was frantically taking notes, trying to record as much information as possible. Margaret, we need to contact the government. The military needs to know what's coming. Margaret shook her head. The government buried Project Constellation for a reason. They were terrified of the implications of alien contact. If we reveal this now, they'll spend more time trying to control the technology than using it to defend Earth. The The holographic display shifted, showing images of space around Earth. The approaching objects were closer now, visible to Earth's most powerful telescopes. They were massive, each one larger than a city, moving in perfect formation toward the inner solar system. Katie gasped as new information flooded her mind. They're not just ships, they're mobile weapons platforms designed to strip the biological energy from entire planets. They'll arrive in 8 days. Jake Murphy, a broad man with engineer's calluses on his hands, studied the weapon blueprints floating in the air around them. These designs, they're showing us how to build energy shields and projectile weapons, but the power requirements are enormous. We'd need fusion reactors just to operate one defensive platform. Not if we use the enhanced humans as power sources, Katie said, the words coming from the alien knowledge flowing through her. The genetic modifications weren't just meant to make us stronger. They turned us into living batteries for Xylorian technology. Lisa Chang, one of the twins, spoke up for the first time. You're saying we're supposed to power these weapons with our own life force? Not our life force. Our enhanced metabolism. The crystals taught our bodies how to convert biological energy into the type of power Xylorian technology requires. We can operate their weapons without dying, but it will require all of us working together. The holographic display showed them images of the battle to come, humans enhanced by alien technology operating weapons platforms in Earth's orbit, fighting against ships that had consumed dozens of worlds. It was a battle between biology and machinery, between adaptation and consumption. Margaret looked around, at the group of people who had been chosen by fate to defend their world. We have 8 days to prepare. 8 days to build weapons, enhance more humans, and get ready for a war that will determine whether Earth survives or becomes another dead world in the Devourer's wake. Katie felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Her quiet life as a waitress was truly over. She was now the primary interface for humanity's most advanced weapons, the key to a defense system that had been 50 years in the making. Around her, the other enhanced humans began to understand their roles in the coming battle. The crystal network hummed with energy as it prepared to transform not just 7 individuals, but the entire human species into something capable of fighting for their survival among the stars. Katie stood in the center of 7 crystals arranged in a perfect circle, each one floating 3 feet off the ground and pulsing with brilliant blue light. The other enhanced humans surrounded her, their hands extended toward their respective devices as energy flowed between them in visible streams of light. Margaret and Peter watched from behind protective barriers as the alien technology prepared to unlock humanity's hidden potential. Are you ready for this? Margaret asked through the intercom system. The energy levels in the room were already dangerous for unenhanced humans. Katie nodded, though she was not sure anyone could be ready for what was about to happen. For the past 4 days, the crystal network had been showing her glimpses of the transformation process. She would become something more than human, a living interface capable of controlling weapons that could destroy entire fleets. But the process would change her forever. Begin the sequence, she said, her voice steady despite her fear. The crystals flared with light that was almost too bright to look at. Energy poured into Katie from 7 directions at once, and she felt her genetic structure changing at the molecular level. Her nervous system was rewritten to process information at superhuman speeds. Her muscles were reinforced with fibers that could handle forces that would tear apart normal human tissue. Her brain was enhanced with new structures that allowed her to interface directly with alien technology. But the most dramatic change was in her metabolism. The crystals taught her body how to convert biological energy into the exotic particles that powered Xylorian weapons. She became a living fusion reactor, capable of generating enough power to operate defensive systems that could protect entire continents. Around her, the other 6 enhanced humans underwent similar transformations. Luis Rodriguez gained the ability to coordinate multiple weapon systems simultaneously, his military training merging with alien tactical knowledge. Amy Wright became capable of calculating ballistic trajectories across solar system distances. Her physicist's mind expanded to comprehend forces beyond normal human understanding. Jake Murphy's engineering skills were enhanced until he could design and build alien technology using nothing but Earth materials and human manufacturing techniques. The twins Lisa and Kevin Chang developed a shared consciousness that allowed them to operate paired weapon systems with perfect coordination. When the transformation was complete, Katie opened her eyes and saw the world in ways she had never imagined. She could perceive energy fields, detect the quantum signatures of alien technology, and sense the approach of the Devourer fleet like a growing darkness at the edge of her awareness. "How do you feel?" Margaret asked as the protective barriers retracted. "Different," Katie replied, her voice carrying harmonics that had not been there before. "I can feel every enhanced human on Earth. There are more of them than we thought. Millions more." She walked to a computer terminal and placed her hand on the screen. Information flowed through her enhanced nervous system, showing her the global distribution of humans carrying modified genes. They were concentrated in major cities, scattered across all continents, most of them unaware of their enhanced capabilities. The Yao. Genetic modifications have been spreading for 3 generations, Katie explained as data appeared on screens around the room. Every time someone with enhanced genes had children, they passed on the modifications. The effect has been accelerating. Peter studied the population maps with amazement. 12% of the human population carries some level of genetic enhancement. That's almost 1 billion people. But most of them haven't been activated yet, Luis added, his enhanced tactical awareness allowing him to analyze the strategic implications. They have the potential, but they need exposure to Xylorian technology to trigger the transformation. Amy was examining readings from the approaching fleet. "We have 4 days before they reach Earth orbit. Can we activate that?" "Many people in time?" Katie closed her eyes and reached out with her expanded consciousness, touching the minds of enhanced humans around the world. She could feel them in Tokyo and London, in Sao Paulo and Lagos, in small towns and major cities. All of them carried the genetic modifications that would allow them to interface with alien technology. "We don't need to activate all of them," she said, opening her eyes. "The crystal network can work through proximity. If we place activated devices in major population centers, they can trigger mass transformations through broadcast signals." Margaret was already making calculations. "We have 7 active crystals. If we position them strategically, we could cover most of the inhabited world. But we'll need to coordinate with governments, and that means revealing everything." "No time for politics," Jake said, his enhanced engineering mind already designing distribution systems. "We build the weapons first, then worry about permissions later. The Devourers won't wait for bureaucratic approval." Over the next 24 hours, the enhanced humans worked with an efficiency that amazed their normal human colleagues. Katie interfaced with manufacturing systems around the world, using Margaret's corporate resources to begin producing simplified versions of Xylorian technology. The devices were crude compared to the original crystals, but they would be sufficient to trigger genetic activation in enhanced humans. Luis coordinated with military contacts who were willing to listen to impossible stories about alien invasion, while Amy worked with international space agencies to position detection equipment in Earth's outer atmosphere. Jake designed weapon platforms that could be assembled in Earth orbit, using existing spacecraft and materials. The twins worked together to create a global communication network that would allow all enhanced humans to coordinate their actions during the coming battle. Their shared consciousness became the foundation for a collective intelligence that could respond to threats faster than any individual mind. But it was Katie who made the most important discovery. As she delved deeper into the Xylorian databanks, she learned the truth about why Earth had been chosen as a battleground. The Devourers have consumed 47 worlds in this part of the galaxy, she reported to the group. But they've never faced a species like humans. Every other civilization they encountered was peaceful, focused on technology and philosophy. They weren't prepared for war. Margaret looked up from her coordination screens. "What makes humans different?" "We're the only species that ever developed nuclear weapons. We're the only ones who fought global wars using industrial technology. The Xylorians studied our history and realized that humans have something no other species possessed: the ability to adapt any technology for warfare." Peter nodded thoughtfully. "We weaponize everything. It's both our greatest strength and our greatest weakness." In this case, it's our salvation, Katie continued. The Devourers expect to find a world full of peaceful beings who will surrender when faced with overwhelming force. Instead, they're going to encounter 6 billion humans who have been preparing for war their entire evolutionary history. Amy brought up projections of the coming battle. Even with our advantages, the odds are not good. The Devourer fleet has enough firepower to sterilize the planet's surface. We need something more than enhanced humans and alien weapons. Katie smiled, and for a moment her transformed features looked almost predatory. We have something the Devourers have never encountered before. We have human ingenuity backed by alien technology. We're going to give them a war they'll never forget. Around the world, the activation signals began broadcasting from hidden transmitters. Enhanced humans felt the call in their modified genes and began transforming into something beyond normal humanity. In military bases and research facilities, in corporate boardrooms and university laboratories, people who had never suspected their true nature suddenly found themselves capable of interfacing with technology that could reshape reality. The Devourer fleet was still 3 days away, but Earth was no longer a defenseless world awaiting consumption. It was becoming an armed fortress populated by beings who had spent their entire history learning how to fight impossible odds and win. Katie stood at the center of it all, her consciousness expanding to touch every enhanced human on the planet. Through the crystal network, she could feel their determination, their fear, and their absolute refusal to surrender. Humanity had been chosen to make a stand against an enemy that had never been defeated. They would either save their world, or die trying, but they would not go quietly into extinction. Katie floated in zero gravity inside the International Space Station. Her consciousness expanded across a network that now included over 50 million enhanced humans. Through the viewport, she could see the approaching Xylorian ships, not the Devourers as they had expected, but the refugees who had been fleeing across the galaxy for centuries. Their massive vessels hung in space like silver cities, beautiful and desperate. They're requesting communication, Amy reported from the makeshift command center they had established in the station's laboratory module. Her enhanced abilities allowed her to interpret the alien transmission protocols faster than any computer. They want to speak with the network primary. Katie closed her eyes and opened her mind to the incoming signals. Information flowed through the crystal network, carrying with it the weight of a civilization that had lost everything. The Xylorian speaker was named Zeph Karin, a being whose thoughts felt ancient and tired. Young network singer. The alien consciousness touched Katie's mind with concepts that barely translated into human language. We greet you across the void between. Your species has surprised us with the speed of your awakening. Katie felt Margaret and the others listening through the network connection. She had become the voice of humanity in this first contact situation, a responsibility that both thrilled and terrified her. We received your warnings. We've been preparing for the Devourers. Then why? Shadow Eaters come behind us 3 cycles of your sun away. We had hoped to find your world empty, a place where we might make our final stand. Instead, we discover that you have awakened the gifts we left for you. This changes everything. Through the connection, Katie saw flashes of Xylorian history, their beautiful world with its crystalline cities and biotechnological gardens, the first attacks by the Devourers, machines that converted biological energy into fuel for their endless expansion, the desperate evacuation, billions of beings fleeing in ships that carried the last remnants of their civilization. How many of you survived? Katie asked. 43 ships carry what remains of our people, perhaps 2 million souls, all that escaped when our homeworld was consumed. We have been running for 700 of your years, seeking a world where we might make our final stand. Luis Rodriguez, monitoring from a military command post on Earth, spoke through the network. Why here? Why Earth? The alien thoughts carried traces of what humans might recognize as hope. Your species is unique, network singers. Every other civilization we have encountered was peaceful by nature. They created beauty and knowledge, but when faced with the Shadow Eaters, they could only flee or surrender. Humans are different. You are the first species we have found that weaponizes everything you touch. Margaret's voice joined the conversation from her laboratory. You wanted us to become weapons. We wanted you to become what we could never be. Warriors who could adapt and survive. The enhancement devices we left on your world were not just to prepare individual humans. They were to prepare your entire species for the war that would determine the fate of biological life in this galaxy. Katie felt the network pulse with the emotions of 50 million enhanced humans as they processed this revelation. Fear and anger mixed with determination and pride. Humanity had been chosen not for their wisdom or their peace, but for their ability to fight. What do you need from us? Jake Murphy asked from the orbital manufacturing platform he had been building. Integration, Zeph Karin replied. Our technology combined with your tactical innovation. Our knowledge merged with your adaptability. Together we might accomplish what neither species could alone. Amy was already analyzing the data streams coming from the Xylorian ships. Their weapons are more advanced than anything we've built, but their tactical systems are designed for defensive actions. They don't think like predators. Whereas humans have been predators for millions of years, Katie said, understanding flooding through her enhanced consciousness. You need us to teach you how to hunt. The Shadow Eaters have consumed 47 worlds in this sector. Each time they arrived to find peaceful civilizations that surrendered rather than fight. They have never faced an enemy that learned, from each battle, that adapted their technology for warfare, that refused to accept defeat even when facing impossible odds. Through the network, Katie could feel the enhanced humans around the world responding to this challenge. In military bases and research facilities, in corporate offices and university laboratories, people who had just discovered their alien heritage were volunteering to fight for their world. Lisa and Kevin Chang, working from their shared consciousness, pod in California, began coordinating with Xylorian technical specialists. Their ships can be modified with human weapon systems, our targeting computers, their energy sources, their shields, our tactical programs. Peter Collins, monitoring from Margaret's laboratory, brought up strategic projections. Combined fleet would have advantages neither side possessed alone, but we need to integrate systems quickly. The Devourers are still approaching. 2 cycles, 13 rotations in your timekeeping, Zeph Karin confirmed. They move slowly, conserving energy for the consumption process, but when they arrive, they will attempt to drain all biological energy from your world within a single rotation. Katie felt her enhanced metabolism spike as her body prepared for the battles ahead. Around the world, millions of enhanced humans were undergoing final transformations, their genetics reaching full potential under the influence of Xylorian technology broadcast from the refugee ships. We'll need to coordinate our forces, she said, her consciousness expanding to touch the minds of both human and alien commanders. Your ships can serve as mobile command platforms while our enhanced humans operate surface-based weapons. And orbital platforms, Jake added. I can have manufacturing facilities in space within 18 hours. Your technology, our production methods, will build weapons specifically designed to fight the Devourers. Margaret coordinated with government officials who were finally beginning to understand the reality of the situation. Military forces worldwide are being briefed on the alien technology. Enhanced humans are being integrated into command structures. We're mobilizing the entire planet. But it was Amy who made the most important observation. The Devourers expect to find a dead system when they arrive. They're designed to consume biological energy, not fight an active defense. If we can coordinate the timing of our attack, we might be able to surprise them. Zeph Karin's thoughts carried the first traces of something like hope that the Xylorians had felt in centuries. You propose to ambush creatures that have never been ambushed, to use their own consumption patterns against them. It's what humans do, Katie said, feeling the predatory satisfaction of 50 million enhanced minds backing her words. We take any situation and find a way to turn it into a weapon. The Devourers made a mistake when they taught us to fight. Now we're going to show them what happens when humans decide something needs to die. Through the crystal network, human and alien minds began to merge into a combined intelligence that thought in ways neither species had achieved alone. The integration was not without problems. Silurian pacifism clashed with human aggression. Alien logic conflicted with human intuition. But from that conflict came something new, a hybrid consciousness that could plan for war while still valuing life. The Devourer fleet continued its approach, confident that Earth would fall as easily as the 47 worlds before it. They had no way of knowing that this time they faced not just another peaceful civilization, but an alliance between refugee wisdom and predatory innovation. Humanity had found its role in the galaxy, not as conquerors or explorers, but as the warriors who would stand between civilization and extinction. And for the first time in 700 years, the Xylorians believed they might actually win. The Devourer fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, their massive ships spreading out in the formation they had used to consume 47 worlds. Each vessel was the size of a small moon, its hull covered with energy, collectors designed to drain biological force from entire planets. They moved with the mechanical precision of creatures that had never faced real resistance. Katie floated in the command center of the newly constructed orbital platform, her consciousness linked to both the human defensive network and the Xylorian refugee fleet. Through enhanced senses, she could feel the Devourer's hunger like a cold weight pressing against her mind. They radiated an emptiness that wanted to consume everything living. Energy signatures are consistent with previous attacks, Amy reported, from her position aboard the Xylorian flagship. They're following standard consumption protocols. Slow approach, energy field deployment, then systematic draining of all biological matter. Luis Rodriguez coordinated defensive positions from a fortified command post in Colorado. All surface installations are ready. Enhanced human operators are in position at every major weapon platform. We have coverage of every populated area on the planet. But it was Jake Murphy who delivered the most important news from his orbital manufacturing facility. Hybrid weapons are online and ready. Human targeting systems integrated with Xylorian energy sources. We've built things that shouldn't be possible, and they all work. Katie studied the tactical display showing the approaching enemy fleet. 27 massive ships arranged in a pattern designed to envelop Earth completely. Behind them came smaller vessels, collectors that would harvest the biological energy once the main fleet had stunned all life on the planet. They're beginning. Energy field deployment, Zefkarin reported from the Xylorian command ship. Standard procedure. They will attempt to render all biological life unconscious before beginning the consumption process. The first wave of Devourer energy washed over Earth's defensive positions, a field designed to shut down nervous systems and leave entire populations helpless. But instead of falling unconscious, the enhanced humans felt their modified metabolisms surge with power. The alien energy meant to disable them became fuel for their enhanced abilities. Energy absorption is working perfectly, Katie announced, her voice carrying across the global network. All enhanced humans are reporting power increases. The Devourers just gave us the energy we need to fight them. Around the world, 50 million enhanced humans felt the transformation complete as they absorbed the Devourer energy field. Their bodies converted the alien power into forms that could operate the hybrid weapons Jake had built. Surface-based cannon that could pierce ship hulls from planetary range came online, powered by humans who had become living fusion reactors. The Devourer fleet paused, their sensors detecting energy signatures that did not match any previous conquest. For the first time in their species' history, the pacification field had made their enemies stronger instead of weaker. Execute Phase 1, Katie commanded, her consciousness coordinating the actions of millions of minds across the planet. The first volley of hybrid weapons fire erupted from Earth's surface, beams of concentrated energy that had been designed, using both human military doctrine and Xylorian physics. The Devourer's shields, calibrated to deflect the weapons of peaceful civilizations, proved inadequate against systems designed by a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of war. 3 Devourer ships took direct hits, their hulls cracking under the impact of weapons they had never encountered before. The mechanical beings inside experienced something their species had forgotten. Surprise. Phase 2, Luis announced, as orbital platforms built in the last 48 hours opened fire with weapons that mixed human missile technology with Xylorian energy projection systems. The Xylorian refugee fleet hidden behind Earth's moon launched their own attack. But instead of the defensive measures they had used in previous encounters, they employed human tactical doctrines that emphasized aggression and unpredictability. Their beautiful ships moved like predators, striking at the devourer flanks with precision that spoke of human military training. Katie felt the enemy fleet's confusion through the network connection. The devourers communicated through quantum entanglement, and their collective consciousness was struggling to process the reality of effective resistance. They had built their entire expansion strategy around the assumption that biological life forms were inherently peaceful. "They're trying to adapt," Amy warned from her position monitoring devourer communications. "They're analyzing our weapons and attempting to modify their shields." "Too late," Jake responded, launching the weapons. He had been building in secret. Phase 3, the hybrid missiles erupted from concealed launchers throughout the solar system, each one containing a human-designed warhead powered by Xylorian energy sources. But these were not conventional explosives. They were biological conversion bombs, designed to turn the devourer's own consumption technology against them. The missiles penetrated the enemy shields through brute force and detonated inside the devourer ships. Instead of destroying the vessels, they converted the mechanical beings inside into the same type of biological energy the devourers normally consumed. The predators became prey, their own hunger turning them into fuel for their enemies. 7 ships neutralized, Luis reported, his enhanced tactical awareness tracking the battle across multiple dimensions. "Enemy fleet is attempting to retreat." But Katie had anticipated this response. Through the network, she coordinated with Xylorian navigators who understood hyperspace travel better than any human. As the devourer ships attempted to flee, they found their escape routes blocked by hybrid mines that made hyperspace jumps impossible. "No retreat," Katie announced, her voice carrying the determination of an entire species. "No surrender, no mercy. They came here to consume our world. Now they get to see what happens when humans decide something needs to die." The battle continued for 6 hours as Earth's defenders systematically destroyed the devourer fleet. Each enemy ship that fell provided more biological energy for the enhanced humans to absorb, making them stronger and more capable with every victory. The planet's defensive network grew more powerful as the battle progressed, turning the devourer's own energy against them. Peter Collins, monitoring from Margaret's laboratory, recorded the final moments of the last devourer ship. Energy conversion complete. All enemy vessels neutralized. No survivors detected. Katie floated in the aftermath of humanity's first interstellar war, her consciousness still expanded across the global network. Through enhanced senses, she could feel the relief and exhaustion of 50 million humans who had just fought for their species' survival. But she could also feel something else: the satisfaction of predators who had successfully defended their territory. "Status report," Margaret requested from Earth's surface. "Complete victory," Katie replied, though the words felt inadequate to describe what had just happened. "The devourer fleet has been eliminated. Earth is secure." Zeph Karin's thoughts touched her mind, carrying wonder and gratitude. "In 700 years of running, we never imagined this outcome was possible. Your species has accomplished what 47 civilizations could not." But Luis was already thinking ahead to future threats. This was just one fleet. The devourers must have other forces scattered throughout the galaxy. Amy nodded, her enhanced intellect analyzing the captured dévoué data. According to their navigation records, there are at least 12 other fleets currently consuming worlds in nearby sectors, and there may be a central command structure coordinating their expansion. Katie felt the network pulse with new purpose, as millions of enhanced humans considered the implications. Earth was safe, but the galaxy still faced the threat of total consumption. The devourers had made a critical error when they attacked a world populated by predators. Now those predators were looking outward toward the stars, with the hunting instincts of a species that had never learned to back down from a fight. "Then we hunt them down," Katie said, her voice carrying the promise of a species that had just discovered its true purpose in the universe. All of them. Every last devourer in the galaxy. We'll teach them what it means to threaten biological life when humans are around to object. Around her, the hybrid weapon systems powered down as Earth's defenders began planning their next move. The battle for Earth was over, but the war for the galaxy had just begun. 2 years after the Battle of Earth, Katie stood on the observation deck of the starship Terra's Vengeance, watching as her strike force approached the dying world of Calora Prime. The planet's surface glowed with the sickly green light of Devourer, energy collectors, massive machines that had been draining biological life for 3 months. But unlike the 47 worlds that had fallen before Earth's awakening, this one would be saved. Devourer harvesting platform detected, Amy reported from the ship's navigation center. Her consciousness now spanned multiple vessels simultaneously, coordinating fleet movements across interstellar distances. Standard configuration, but they've modified their shields based on data from the Earth battle. Katie smiled, her enhanced features reflecting the cold satisfaction of a predator who had learned to enjoy the hunt. Through the neural network that now connected over 200 million enhanced humans across dozens of worlds, she could feel the anticipation of her strike team. They had liberated 6 worlds in the past year, and each victory had made them more efficient at the art of devourer destruction. Modifications won't help them, Luis announced from the Terra's Vengeance Tactical Center. He now commanded a fleet of hybrid ships that combined human aggression with Xylorian technology, vessels designed specifically for hunting the galaxy's apex predators. Jake's new weapon systems are 3 generations ahead of anything they've seen. The engineering genius had outdone himself again. Jake Murphy now operated from a mobile construction platform that could build hybrid weapons in deep space, using materials harvested from destroyed Devourer ships. His latest creation were quantum disruption torpedoes that could phase through any known shield technology before converting matter directly into energy. Beginning liberation protocol, Katie announced, her consciousness touching the minds of enhanced humans throughout the fleet. Remember, our primary objective is to save the surviving population. Devourer destruction is secondary. The Terra's Vengeance led a formation of 30 ships toward Calora Prime, each vessel crewed by enhanced humans who had volunteered for the dangerous work of galactic liberation. Behind them came Xylorian support ships carrying medical facilities and refugee transport capacity. The alliance between humanity and the crystalline beings had evolved into something more powerful than either species had achieved alone. Surface scans show approximately 2 million Kellerans still alive, Lisa Chang reported from her sensory analysis station. Her twin Kevin coordinated with Xylorian telepaths to establish communication with the planet's survivors. They're concentrated in underground bunkers, but the Devourer extraction beams are penetrating deeper each day. Katie felt the familiar surge of protective anger that drove her in these missions. The Devourers consumed entire civilizations with mechanical efficiency, treating biological life as nothing more than fuel for their expansion. But they had made a fatal error when they taught humanity to fight. Now, every world they attacked became another opportunity for enhanced humans to perfect their hunting techniques. Target the primary harvesting platform, she commanded. Full weapons release. The hybrid weapons fired in perfect coordination, quantum torpedoes and energy beams, striking the massive Devourer facility from multiple angles. The alien shields held for approximately 3 seconds before Jake's new disruption technology tore through them like paper. The harvesting platform exploded in a cascade of converted energy that lit up Calora Prime's atmosphere. Secondary platforms are attempting to retreat, Amy announced. They're trying to reach minimum safe distance for hyperspace jump. Negative, Katie replied, her consciousness expanding through the fleet network. No survivors, no escape. Hunt them down. The Terra's Vengeance and her escort ships pursued the fleeing Devourers with the relentless efficiency of apex predators. Enhanced human pilots flew with skills that combined alien technology with instincts honed by millions of years of evolution. They moved through space like wolves chasing wounded prey, coordinating their attacks through shared consciousness while adapting their tactics in real time. Within 2 hours, every Devourer facility in the Calora system had been destroyed. The energy collectors that had been draining the planet's life force were converted into power sources for the Liberation Fleet. Enhanced humans absorbed the biological energy that would have been lost forever, using it to fuel their own enhanced capabilities. Surface teams, begin evacuation procedures, Katie commanded as transport ships descended toward Calora Prime. Medical teams, prepare for mass biological trauma treatment. Margaret Stone, now 81 but enhanced far beyond normal human limitations, coordinated the relief effort from her command ship. Her Terra Foundation had become the primary organization for galactic humanitarian aid, using resources that spanned multiple star systems to help survivors of Devourer attacks. 2 million Calorans rescued, she reported 6 hours later. Medical teams report that most will make full recoveries. The Devourers hadn't completed their consumption process. Katie felt the satisfaction of another successful mission through the neural network. Around the galaxy, enhanced humans working on dozens of liberation projects shared in the victory. Each rescued world added new allies to the growing coalition of species that refused to accept Devourer dominance. Status report from other sectors, she requested, as the Terra's Vengeance prepared to depart for their next mission. Amy coordinated information from across human space. Fleet 7 has liberated 3 worlds in the Andros sector. Fleet 12 is engaging a major Devourer force near the galactic rim, and the Xylorian exploration ships have identified 14 more worlds under attack. But it was Peter Collins who delivered the most important news from his research station in Earth orbit. We've located their central command structure, a massive facility in the galactic core, coordinating Devourer operations across thousands of star systems. Katie felt the network pulse with anticipation as 200 million enhanced humans considered the implications. The galaxy-spanning war against the Devourers had been a series of individual battles, liberating one world at a time. But if they could strike at the enemy's command center, they might be able to end the threat permanently. How many ships would we need? Luis asked, his tactical mind already planning the assault. All of them, Peter replied. Every enhanced human, every hybrid ship, every weapon we've built in the past 2 years. This would be the largest military operation in galactic history. Through the network, Katie could feel the response of her species. Enhanced humans throughout the galaxy were volunteering for what might be a suicide mission. They had spent 2 years learning to hunt the hunters, and now they were ready to finish what the Devourers had started when they attacked Earth. Begin fleet consolidation, Katie commanded. Send word to every enhanced human in the galaxy. Send word to our Xylorian allies and every species we've liberated. Tell them it's time to end this war. She stood on the observation deck of the Terra's Vengeance, looking out at the stars that had once seemed so distant and cold. Now they were hunting grounds where humanity had found its true purpose. Not as conquerors or explorers, but as guardians who stood between civilization and extinction. Through the neural network, she could feel her great-niece Sarah taking her first steps on Earth, already showing signs of enhanced genetics. Another generation was growing up in a galaxy where biological life had protectors, where the threat of consumption no longer meant certain death. Margaret's voice reached her through the network connection. Katie, do you ever regret what we've become? Katie touched the crystal at her throat, the device that had started her transformation from Waitress to Galactic Guardian. Around her, enhanced humans prepared for the final battle against an enemy that had consumed 47 civilizations before learning that humanity existed. No regrets, she replied, her voice carrying the determination of a species that had refused to surrender. The Devourers taught us to fight. Now we're going to teach the galaxy what humans do to anything that threatens the people we protect. The Terra's Vengeance turned toward the galactic core, followed by the largest fleet in human history. Behind them, liberated worlds began their recovery under the protection of enhanced humans who would never allow the darkness to return. The galaxy had new guardians now, and they were just getting started.